Good morning, everyone. We've got a thumbs up. We are now Facebook Live for our work session, so we'll call this one to order. It's a light group of us today, but that's all right. I believe we can manage it. We've got a presentation from Josh Wooten with TVA, who's going to give us an update on what they're planning on doing. They've got a pay raise. Well, maybe so. They've got a rate increase coming up, and then Edward's going to follow up with that. So we'll go ahead and get started. Edward, I'll let you do whatever introductions you need. Josh, I think you know everybody, but for Facebook folks, we'll give them a kind of a who you are.
Okay. This is the best place to sit here.
Make yourself comfortable. This is a relaxed environment, so nothing formal here.
Mayor and City Board, I appreciate this opportunity to see y'all again, and just certainly every opportunity to just leverage the partnership that we have with the City of Starkville. I certainly want to acknowledge those very quickly, as well as our TVA Board decisions from August. So I'll go ahead and go to this next slide here. So a lot of things are going on, as everyone. The landscape has changed, and that's when partnerships are imperative. And so Edward has been leaning hard into the TVA Energy Right program. Matter of fact, y'all received that top performer award in the area of energy efficiency and also just education. So we're working on Industrial Summit. And so we'll talk through some of the Energy Right programs, comp services, technical services, provisions. And if you look at the TVA or the Mississippi map for EV fast chargers, it's pretty dismal, but you guys are going to make a difference there, I believe next year. So that's underway. Also working on a tree planting and beautification partnership with the City of Starkville as well as Mississippi State. So more to come on that. A couple things did note here. Just want to recognize Edward. He is representing the Mississippi local power companies with the Rates and Contracts group, as well as the Regional Grid Transformation Initiative. So Mr. John Scott is also supporting that initiative. The landscape is changing in the utility industry. So Edward has a lot more information on that if you want to circle back on that initiative, but or any of these opportunities. But so we'll get to the TVA Board actions update in August. They had 3/4 of our financials available, and so based on the information they had in place, as well as the projection of what's coming down the pipe. The board voted for a 4.5% base rate increase, and that's going to be effective October 1st. The question is, why the increase? I'll kind of connect the dots on what is that impact, and Edward kind of give a little bit more granularity than at the retail level because of the public power model of us providing the wholesale base rates and the Starkville portion of that cost to provide the service. And so to tell a little bit about the why, we have to invest into some major infrastructure improvements, transmission lines, generation. Past 10 years, we've spent $25 billion. The next 3 years, we'll actually be spending $15 billion. And it's kind of, I'll show a graph here in a second, but there's a bridge that will need to be covered between now and 2030 because of we've done such a great job in the South that since COVID, there's so many people that have wanted to come manufacture, do business, and the cost of living is so affordable in the South that it's been just a pretty substantial change. Over the next 10 years, we'll be leveraging energy efficiency and demand response, and that is to help basically shape the load so that we're not having to spend as much in generation to hit those peak points. So what I was talking about here is if you look at what we call the lost decade, so to speak, the flat load growth between 2010 and 2020, it was super flat, and that was right. 2010 was on the heels of the Great Recession, and then COVID hit, and it's almost kind of like World War II. Something that very terrible happens, but on the heels of it, a huge amount of manufacturing growth comes of it. So that phenomenon kind of replicated there in 2020. And so we're projecting record high loads. Matter of fact, we took a tour in the Chattanooga facilities this summer. We visited on the second of the 3-day record for 3 days straight of 31,000 megawatts that we were providing on those 3 days. So that wasn't a record, but for those continuous days. So I guess what I'm saying is our load is growing as indicated, and we're projecting it to continue to grow. And if you have load, apparently you have to have generation. And generation is area of focus. Our administration is focused on clean energy. So we have a two-fold prong of approach as far as sustainability and reliability with a combination of gas and solar, and ultimately small modular reactors. And so, we kind of talked about kind of the points here, some of the drivers of just basically in-migration, a lot of car manufacturers coming to the valley, Lunar Dynamics landing right here in the Golden Triangle. These are big blocks of load that has to be matched with generation. Blue Oval City for Ford, just east of Memphis. And then you have battery manufacturers, so data centers. And so those come in blocks of 10s and 20 megawatts. So for many years, anything greater than 2 to 5 megawatts was a big project. And now we're just seeing a ton come into the area. So that's where we'll kind of really be focused on the next between here and 2030. So rolling out a large amount of generation. Currently, we've got 3,800 megawatts of generation, combination of gas as well as solar and battery storage. And you kind of notice some of those locations that are depicted on the map. This doesn't show one of the projects that's being evaluated in the Lowndes County area, so it's not been approved. So I can't probably give much more information than that, but always am excited to hear of TVA assets being landed here in Mississippi. And so, and that doesn't also did not reflect the Golden Triangle Solar 1 and 2 between Charlottesville and Columbus, and the solar project just north of West Point. So those are ongoing. So really, with the capacity growth and the load management, that balance is underway, and that's where we'll be leaning on the city of Starkville and the other 152 local power companies and our direct servers on managing their load profiles, so that we can maybe flip the peak, so we don't have to invest as much in brick and mortar generation, but leverage demand response programs to just basically initiate a signal saying you need to clip your load, and it's manageable within so much time and for the time period that's needed. And so that's kind of that's the general update. I don't know if you want questions now or after.
Well, we'll go with you first.
Okay.
So what I think I just heard you say is that if we have another occurrence like we had this winter, that we're going to find us managing those loads as opposed to y'all having enough to generate what's necessary to respond to that?
So the current emergency load curtailment plan is in place, and we have shored up some of our lessons learned from December. So we certainly don't anticipate what we experienced for Winter Storm Elliott, but as far as capacity-wise, that is our intent of not having that happen again as we're growing our generation fleet. But demand response probably clipped 5,000 megawatts off of Winter Storm Elliott. So there could have, if you added all of them, all the load up, it could have been up to 38,000 megawatts of load. But we had that program in place, so we're wanting to expand that program as the load is growing into the area, and the newcomers are actually being asked to participate in a load reduction program for that very reason. So many lessons learned from Winter Storm Elliott.
I didn't know it had a name, for one thing. It had a name, okay, a named storm.
Very, very unique winter front there, because a lot of what we do is we do economic dispatch, whether it's our own generation or our neighbors. So in that case, some of our neighbors were experiencing the same thing we were, therefore limited generation. Some generation that we had firm contracts on were not fulfilled as anticipated. So, and usually the South and the North don't have the same weather front at the same time. So Winter Storm Elliott was a very unique one. To answer your question, we had gone back and had a quick 200 plus action item to get things shored up of lessons learned, and that is on, I guess, layered on what we learned in 2014. So some of those solutions were a little bit unique for this storm. So TVA is regulated by NERC, well, FERC and NERC and CERC. So we have transmission regulatory.
Sounds like a real trio.
And so we are required to have basically a robust study and study the system, but also a plan that if we run into a situation like we have, that we would have to leverage again. But our plan is to, it was 90 years until we had that one event. I'm hoping that our plan is not to have it again.
Okay, well, hopefully we won't have that same bizarre kind of structure, but I'm not thinking that things are going to get a whole lot better in terms of weather. I think it's going to continue to be somewhat dramatic in what we're seeing.
So those 2 days were extreme winter events, and the next day it was 17,000 megawatts.
Yep.
So it dropped from like what could have been 38,000 megawatts down to 17. So bizarre times we live in.
Okay, so you're saying you think y'all can weather the next storm?
Of course.
All right. Any question?
You made it through August, and I'll be honest, I kept waiting to hear that we were going to have to do rolling blackouts or something along those lines. So I think y'all must have learned something that you were able to implement during that time frame.
Well, and so Edward and his peers provided some very constructive criticism, for sure, constructing opportunities that we need to focus on in communication. So we really didn't get above what we call step 10 of that commercial load curtailment, where we just we look at our internal loads and just manage it at the lowest level, and we never did actually get step 20. And that would ask for a public appeal. So thank you for noticing that it was not issued.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, all right.
I'll-
Mr. Kemp,
I'll
you're up.
go right into the what it looks like on the granular level, on the local level. Certainly, everything that TVA does affects us directly and indirectly, and so that's what I wanted to talk about today. In addition to this is a kind of good point, we thought, to do an evaluation of kind of where we are from a rate standpoint and make some recommendations to the board. So I think I would start off by saying, from a stability standpoint, we're on very solid ground, but from a system standpoint and financially, I think that's a testament to this board over many decades of continuing to invest in the system and being fiscally responsible. So this is really more of a discussion about being proactive in the management of this and not really falling behind, because it's a lot harder to catch up if you're behind and really kind of stay in the same position we are. Josh did talk about changing landscape, and we are certainly in a very fast-moving landscape. He talked about that, but we're also faced with a lot of headwinds right now from a cost standpoint, inflation, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we have to face those headwinds and continue to move forward, continue to overcome those, and that's also kind of what I wanted to emphasize today, and what the recommendation and how we've really bridged the the last 3 years or so when this increase we started experiencing. So from a macro level, you guys have seen this, you have felt it every time you go to the grocery store, anytime you've had to pay for any services. Our cost of goods, the inflation that we've experienced here in the recent past has been something that has been extraordinary. And we have felt it no less than, say, an individual consumer from a utility scale perspective. So I want just first and foremost to let you know that we're not insulated or not immune from the same pressures that everybody else is feeling. And then if you take a little step down and look at the overall inflationary pressures on the electrical distribution collectively aggregate, you can see that there has been a slight increase over the last 20 years. And let me point out right in the middle, these gray bars, these are graphs from the Federal Reserve, by the way. These graphs show the recession locations, but in the middle of the first big wide, or I guess it's the second one, in 2009, that was the last time that Stark Utilities did a rate increase. And I'll keep talking about that. But you can see that trend line has slowly inched up, but the trajectory of it has been relatively flat. It's something that we could absorb in-house and continue to maintain and manage. But then you look at what's happened since 2020 and the dramatic increase. And this is just, again, in the electrical distribution world. And then taking it a step further down, looking at an individual component that we use a lot of and that we're highly reliable on is transformers, for example. Again, look at the trend from 2009 to 2020. There's been some ebbs and flows, been able to absorb those, but then the steep dramatic incline starting in 2020 and today has been significant. We don't know what the future holds as well. I think that trajectory is probably not going to come down anytime soon, part of which is responding to some of the growth that Josh just alluded to. There is a high need for it. There's supply chain issues, there's material issues, there's labor issues. And so I feel like that trend is going to only increase. And so you're probably asking, well, why? What has happened over the last 3 years? How have you been able to absorb that? And part of that is the discussion about what we want to talk about today. And falls directly in line with some efforts that TVA has made over the last 3 years with the pandemic credit. And that has really helped us shore up our operation and maintenance expenses and increases over the last 3 years, and honestly has delayed the inevitable, which is some type of a rate action. This is looking at, I know this is a busy slide, but O&M is something that we look at a lot. We manage it. We try to manage it as well as we can. We try to look at ways that we can always trim and monitor this. But the main thing I wanted to show is each of these graphs are a year's worth of O&M. And the bright pink line is our latest year. You can see that those trend lines just continue to go up. And that's what I'm trying to just convey from an O&M standpoint, is that will continue to go up unless we start doing some significant reductions. So you might say, the accountant over there might say, well, you have a $40+ million budget. You ought to be able to take some of your extra costs and transformers and wires and poles and just absorb it, right? And I thought that this was an important slide to show, in that, as you can see, on nearly 80 cents of every dollar that we bill and collect, we give a check.
We give it to Josh?
To Josh. And so really, when you think about the amount that you can flex and manipulate from a budgetary standpoint is relatively small. Payroll is what it is, with all the PERS and things included. And so then you're left really with two wedges that you can really adjust, and that's O&M and capital expense. And I added a debt in there because usually the debt is associated with a capital project in the past. Certainly you could move one way or the other on those, but I would say that they are very much interconnected. What you do today on an O&M affects your system, and then what you're doing today from an investment in your capital affects your long-term viability of your system. You have to have both. You have to have enough to manage your system. And I think that we have been doing that pretty regularly and consistently, and we'll want to continue that same effort. So just looking a little bit at the capital investments, highlighting some of the achievements on the left-hand side. The new Southwest substation was completed recently, a huge improvement for our community, and thanks to TVA for providing us the secondary feed on the south side of town, provided so much more resilience and redundancy for that. Just such a great benefit for our community from an electric standpoint. Of course, wrapping up the off-corridor electric project, you guys have seen some of the new concrete poles going up, trying to improve and bolster our system, particularly downtown and the north part of town, in advancement of the 182 project, but also just from a strengthening of our system standpoint. Ongoing things also related to pole replacements and substations. And then looking forward, we have a continued aggressive capital investment plan. You know, we follow a 5-year plan. Those that are in progress right now, either in planning or further along, we're thank you for the board for your approval of the fiber loop completion. We are advertising for bids on that and hope to receive those later this month. That is just such a huge component for us because it is the backbone where we can start making our systems smarter. We can start doing automation of switches. We can have real-time communication between all of our substations and really take the next step from a system reliability and a system smartness, if you will, a smart grid, if you've heard us talk about. That is the future. You have to have that infrastructure and that backbone to do some of the things that Josh just alluded to with demand response. It's imperative. And Starkville wants to be on the forefront of doing that because we feel like that is the future. And I feel like, I'm not going to speak for TVA, but there'll probably be incentives for helping shape that curve. And in order to do that, you need to have these investments and improvements there. Continuing to make major investments in substations. Substations I equate to a lot like a vehicle or a house. You have to continue to maintain it. And it just happens to be that the equipment and the repairs of those are very expensive and very complex. Take specialized personnel. So we are doing that. The board's approved a substation maintenance agreement, which we're going to continue to do. And then on the consumer side, you know, we're going through a conversion process on our software, which we're really excited about, which is going to then parlay directly into our outage management system and allow customers to see real time when we have outages in their neighborhood or in parts of town or maybe just on their street. That is the future, again, with better connectivity, better communication, and a continued advancement of our AMI. So really, when you boil down what we're recommending today, I put it in 3 main buckets. First is what Josh alluded to, that the TVA board approved in August, is the base rate increase. The way that our TVA power contract is approved or set up, there's really no action that's required for this board for that to go into effect. And it will be a pass-through to the end consumer. It will be on the energy charge. So if you think about the electric bill, is going to be 2 main components. How much you use is the energy charge, how much the kilowatt hours, and then you have a customer charge. That's your fixed cost that you're going to spend every single month. So the base rate increase will be on the energy charge. And the important thing about that distinction is because you can manage the energy charge. If you don't want to use as much energy, then you can do some things, or you can continue to take advantage of some of these energy workshops that we're doing to try to educate consumers about how to manage their energy bills. But that TVA base rate, I know Josh mentioned 4.5, and there's some complexities to that, but at the end bill that you receive in the mail, that will equate to a 2.9% increase on an average bill. Okay? And in the middle bucket is what I'm calling the TVA pandemic credit. For the last 3 years, TVA has helped us offset some of the increases that we've experienced through that, and equates to almost $500,000 a year. Significant, and it has been the bridge, if you will, that has gotten from the recession in 2020 to current, and it's helped us overcome that steep incline. But the TVA pandemic credit is going away. And so our recommendation is to offset that with another one, which equates to 1.5%, again, on the energy charge for that. In addition to that, obviously with the increased cost of all of our materials, everything we're seeing on inflation, we're recommending to add 1% on the customer charge. So that'll be the base rate, which would equate to around a little over $300,000. So most people want to know, okay, what is this going to do to my overall bill? And that's what this slide really is about. I just want to reemphasize that it has been since 2009 since we've made any local rate increases, which is pretty significant, I think, when you think about what has happened over the last 14 years. And we've been able to keep those rates flat. And it's a testament to this board, it's a testament to previous managers, and obviously a testament to the employees on trying to manage all the costs. So the net effect of all those three buckets combined is 5.4%. Again, an itemization of those below there. Our average residential bill, that's where you'll probably hear from the most, is a little over $100 a month. This is just the electric portion. It doesn't include sanitation and water and wastewater. It's just the electric portion. So that increase would be around a little $5.50, and then the proposed with all of these recommendations and the TVA pass-through would be $108. So
And that's with no behavior changes, same energy load.
That's exactly right. So certainly an opportunity to manage that from a behavioral standpoint. And we do have some upcoming energy workshops again planned for this fall. Continue to do that and reach those groups. Again, our goal, we do sell electricity, but our goal is to help really manage, allow the consumer, the residents to manage their bills in the way that we see fit. But yeah, all these things combined, obviously, to support TVA, their generation efforts to make sure that they can provide all the power that we need, maintain our own reliability standards, obviously try to meet the customer expectations, and then invest in it for the future. So that's our recap.
Okay, so let me ask this. This particular increase, you think that's going to carry you for a bit to allow for O&M as well as capital projects?
We think it will carry us for a bit, unless on our current trajectory. I think it'll help us shore where we are right now. If we see another dramatic spike increase, then I'll have to come back to the board at some point. But I would not anticipate having to come back to the board for at least a couple of years.
Well, and I'm going to say it's been since 2009 since we had a rate increase. I think most people, most businesses would probably rather have small incremental increases that they could plan for, and rather than get behind in where we need to be. I am a big believer that inching it up a little bit annually is much easier to absorb than a big jump in 1 year. So I applaud you're trying to keep the rates as low as possible, but I think that it hurts us in some ways. It helps in some ways. You go a couple of years without it, but then you have, as opposed to a couple of dollars increase, you have a $5 increase. So I'd just say monitor that and make sure that you're not setting us up for a situation where we have to have a larger increase down the road.
Not unlike the PERS issue.
Not unlike the PERS issue.
Let's not neglect anything and have to have a major jump, right?
Right.
Okay, any questions? That was very thorough for both of you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we'll look forward to having to put up with those, but we'll also look forward to reliable service. So.
And I'm turning my thermostat up. So.
And I'm not. All right. Thank you so much.
Josh.
Appreciate both of you. All right, lady and gentlemen, let's go into our actual agenda and see where we are. All right, first two items are obviously our minutes. Do we have anything, Burke? They're both ready to go from your perspective and Lisa's perspective?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can we consent those? Okay. We will have some introductions. I know that Mr. Ashford's got, I think, a couple of police officers. Is that correct? That we'll get to introduce. That'll be fun. Okay. Mayor's business, this is it's basically pro forma, as y'all recall. Every year we need to, by virtue of the legislation, we need to approve the budgets for CVB, or VCC as it's legislatively known, OCEDA, and then the Student Affairs, and that's what this is. So this is approving their budgets.
Consent.
Consenting for those, okay. And then we have the golf cart ordinance does not exempt government vehicles, and so that point was raised to me in terms of, do we need to pay for this? Because the university had a couple of golf carts that they wanted to use for games. And so I inquired of Lisa if we had registered any of our city golf carts, and we have not. So I thought, well, we'll just do a governmental exemption because we need to treat ourselves like we need to treat others similarly situated like we treat ourselves. So that was just to take away a charge for government vehicles only. So, okay, consent for that?
Consent, but we'll hear some kickback.
We may. And if we do, we'll discuss it.
And it does say that all of those should be properly marked.
Yes, the only change is to the appendix. This isn't a change to the ordinance. This is just a change to the appendix. So, under board business, we have one appointment for the Starkville Housing Authority, which we had one person who didn't wish to come back, and we had one applicant. So, consent for that one. And then under airport, we've got an AIP grant for accepting for the purchase of wetland credits and airport airspace analysis. And Mr. Lincoln today is down in Meridian at a conference, so consent for that one.
Consent.
Okay. Engineering, Mr. Burnett, anything in particular about this? We have a grant modification to the, what is this, MCWI grant for the Highway 12-182 revitalization project.
It's a formality. Mr. Williams knows more about it than I do, but it's
Okay.
just a Title VI formality.
Oh, there he is. Okay, sorry, you were behind Sandra for me.
So this is the Title VI Civil Rights.
Right.
So this is pretty much just us telling them that, hey, we're going to meet what we're supposed to meet federally. Really, I said, you already have to meet all the federal requirements already, so this is just spelling it out of what we're meeting.
Okay, all right, we'll check that box.
When I was making my notes, I said dotting i's, crossing t's.
Yep.
So.
Exactly.
Consent.
Okay, consent for that one. Then we have accepting the low bid from Burns Dirt for the Colonial Hills drainage projects, which we are very pleased has come in well below the expectation, which is wonderful. So consent for that one. And then we have a proposal from Kimley Horn, and I'm going to let, I guess, Chris or Cody One give just a real brief overview. This is for us as we move toward that new design. So. Who wants to go with just giving a little brief?
I'll let Chris try.
Okay, all right.
So this is for pretty much the value engineering and redesign portion of this. To hit our timelines, we have to redesign everything and have it finished by January. So it's a time-sensitive nature on it. I know we have a chance for appropriation. So what the plan is, or what this covers, is the redesign of the whole project, and then that'll allow us, as funding becomes available or different things happen, we'll be able to adjust the scope of the project on going out with it. And so this way it takes care of everything, and then as we figure out our funding, we can kind of dog it off where we can to have the project hit that budget.
And this is, because we're taking the street back, this allows that redesign, or this is what says that redesign will come into the 182 area.
So what we've done to get to this point is utilities has gone back through, videoed everything and see what they had to have fixed. We looked on the drainage side, and so we kind of try to go with all the departments and look at it with a fresh set of eyes to make sure that we're taking care of the things that we need to take care of.
Okay.
And this allows us to get to a project that's more manageable financially, right?
While having everything to where if we do have an appropriation hit, then we'll be able to make the most of that appropriation. So on that side.
Okay.
Consent.
All right, let's do it. We'll see what happens. All right, claims docket we'll leave off. Acceptance of the August financials. Any issues with that need to be brought up? No? Okay, consent for that one.
Consent.
Lowest and best bids for source of supply. Comes around every year, at least twice.
Consent.
And consent for that one. And then advertising for source of supply. What was I have to ask the question, what's the sections 9 and 10, do they differ in some kind of way?
It's the street department on the poles, mostly, it's the poles that they use for their signs.
For the signs?
And we did not get any bids on those.
Oh, okay.
But we have, Chris Black has spoken to several vendors that said they either just missed the deadline or they had one had.
So we'll try again?
We've got 3 or 4 that said they will submit if we we rebid this.
Okay, all right, so
And should that
rebid.
say for the
Rebid.
street department? Do we leave a word out for the street department?
Yeah, you can put in for, on that last line, of street department. Okay. Okay, all right, good. Thank you. Consent for that one?
Consent.
And then proposed budget adjustments, anything to share about that? Are those just your basic?
Basic year-end.
Okay, our usual, okay.
Consent.
Consent for that one? All right, fire department, we have training for Chief Arnett, for Mr. Davis, Mr. Clark, and Mr. Williams to travel to Okaloosa, Florida. And they're putting it well in advance so that they can get a good price on it. So this is going down there for training, so.
All right, consent.
Consent for that one? Okay. HR and NAV, these are all vacant positions that are budgeted, is that correct?
All except number 6. It's,
Oh, okay.
we're bringing in an additional part-time employee because one of our students' class load is heavy, and so we're having to kind of switch him out. So this
Okay.
person will help pick up some of those hours with that position.
Okay, but it's still, it's a part-time position?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, so consent for those?
Consent.
All right. And then IT, Joel, we have the utility bill insert. This is talking about our new Startwell alert system. We're looking to roll that out next week?
Next week.
Next week. So that, you had a question?
I do. Some folks don't get an actual mailed bill. Will it be online somehow
It
for
will
them?
be, we're gonna do a full court press, we're gonna have literally press releases, social media, we'll talk to the media, they seem very interested when we first announced it, and we're gonna reach back out to them to follow up on that, and this is just part of getting as much coverage as we can to get the word out. So we're gonna have the link on the website live next week to sign up, and so, once we start getting the word out, we expect to see those sign-ups really start coming in.
Okay, look forward to that. I hope those numbers grow.
Definitely.
Okay, all right. Consent for that one? And then we have a licensing change, which we don't have a choice about. We've got to have it, so it's, but it's Tyler. Tyler is, had a one-year cost and then a recurring cost, annual recurring cost. So consent for that one?
Consent.
Okay. Parks, acceptance of the fiscal year budget. This is the submission that we have to approve every year, so this will be in the packet. Want to try to consent that one?
Give it a shot.
Will, consent, okay. And then we've got the T&M steel change order for the additional electrical work. We're going to put in a freezer cooler, and it's going to require a concrete pad. Then you've got bathroom vent covers, and they need an additional 90 days. So that goes with all of that, so.
Okay.
Consent for that one, okay. We have the police department, we have a justice grant. Anything about this, chief, in particular?
No, it's just assistance to build up radar, crime scene, stuff that needs technology.
Okay, all right, and a local match of $1,200, I believe we can find that somewhere for you. Okay, consent for that one?
Consent.
Okay. Apply and participate in the State of Mississippi Cybersecurity Grant Program. Awesome. Tell us a little bit about that,
And
please.
Yes, ma'am.
is it
So-
fiscal 22 or fiscal 24?
It's 22.
Fiscal 22 is what
Okay.
was on
I asked the same
the
question.
application.
Okay.
State of Mississippi is keeping with the national initiative to obviously protect us from internet and states that are starting to go into cities, and I think Dallas has had to suffer, New Orleans. So what the state of Mississippi is doing is auditing the strengths and weaknesses of participating agencies. Year one, year two, they distribute the money. And
Okay.
So that's why it is what
Okay.
it is.
Well, obviously, we don't have any weaknesses, so.
Joel does an amazing job.
He does. All right, consent?
Consent.
All right. And then we have Chief Ballard and Shonda Deloach to attend the National CALIA Conference. This is an awards conference in Bellevue, Washington. They couldn't get it much further away, could they?
They couldn't, no. And we have to answer some questions and follow up with the discussion. We recognize that that is a considerable amount. This is the last process for accreditation, and when the commissioners ask questions, we need to be there.
Okay.
So we don't go back on under conditions.
Okay. All right, so consent
All right,
for that one?
Consent.
Maybe we can do a GoFundMe page or something. Okay. All right. Under sanitation, Chris is going to work on getting his 8-yard rear loader garbage truck.
That's the small one.
That's
right?
the small one. And that will go, where's that going to go, Chris? Is that Cotton District and some of the smaller streets
Tight
and
spaces.
tighter, yes, tighter spaces?
It's actually a truck that allows to utilize downtime to be a little bit more efficient, where we won't have to actually double load the trash, load it, and then unload it. And also serving a purpose to go in some road areas that's kind of narrow to where it'll be less impact on the street.
Okay, great, good. I think that, we've been waiting a while to get that one, so that'd be nice. Consent for that
Consent.
one? Utilities, Edward, you're back up. You want to share any, is there anything in particular here?
The first one is just annual renewal on
Sure.
Electric insurance.
Okay.
The electric division.
Consent.
DIC has been a common provider, and we're actually a member of that company.
Okay,
We had to purchase, speaking of transformers for the new bank building being constructed downtown.
that's the Cadence Bank. Do we expect those transformers to go down at all? Is there any indication that they're going to just level out there, or are they going to continue to go up? Do we have anything that we understand about that?
So there's no indication of them leveling out. The other complexity to that is the Department of Energy has added some efficiency standards on it. So there's a big push right now from APPA and TVPPA to try to defer those energy efficiency standards for 5 years because it is added to the issues on production.
Okay.
So if we can be successful with some of those types of things, I think we potentially can level out a little bit.
Okay, well, we can keep our fingers crossed. Okay. All right, so
That's item number
consent for
2.
that one?
This is,
Okay.
Surplus of an old vehicle.
Okay.
Neighboring Utilities is interested in purchasing it.
Okay,
Book value.
consent for that
Consent.
one? Okay.
Number 4 is our backyard machine, which we utilize quite often.
Yes.
Needs some major maintenance and repairs. That's what the purchase, so.
Consent.
appreciate that.
Consent for that one? Okay.
And item 5 is some lab equipment for the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, consent for that one?
Consent.
And then our electrical rate increase. We might want to leave that one off. And we'll have potential discussion about it. If the board doesn't want to discuss, I feel sure Zach will cover it very well in the paper, so everyone will hear about it. So we'll leave that one off.
Yes, ma'am.
And then a grant agreement with ARC, and this is for the $720,000 acceptance that we just got notice of. So consent for that one?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and that takes us to the end of the agenda, and I don't know of anything else. So unless there's something else for us to talk about, or unless there's something to highlight, or Hail State, go Dogs, and go SHS.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Oh,
go
yeah.
Jackets. It's playing Louisville.
Is Louisville good?
Yes, they are. Yes,
Yeah.
they are. So
So a test.
yes. All right, well, we're out then. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Cody. Question.
Yes, sir.